unanimous votes on boards of education. What we want is they set the tone for the entire system. If it's going, or it is impacting the ability of the system to function, then we will intercede. And part of the responsibilities of boards, I'll get into, I'm sure, through your questioning, is to follow their own policies, follow state and federal laws, and govern the system with a clear focus on student learning. SB 84, the law in which you are talking about. You will be probably surprised. First, we advocated for two components in that law: additional training for boards and standards that could be used in Georgia to guide that training. I did not, and continue to not support, the accreditation component within SB 84 because, with the exception of Clayton County, our process works. It facilitates improvement. We give our school systems at least a year, in some cases longer, to make the necessary improvements. The goal is improvement. It is not removal of elected officials. The reason why we don't identify individuals in our report, we're not going to pick and choose who should be on a board. We're not going to pick and choose who should be superintendent. We're going to look at their effectiveness in carrying out their role. You heard two people from Warren County are back on the board. That's of no concern to us. We don't care who's on the board. We want them to be effective in providing leadership for the educational program so that kids benefit. It is kids that are our concern. So we were not, because our process isn't designed for the courts, it's not designed for the legislature. It's really a partnership between the school system and we need you to be able to conduct the visit. They pick the dates. Provide us your evidence that you are addressing these concerns, or even evidence that you're not addressing. You provide us the evidence you want us to look at. We have all this written documentation. For instance, in DeKalb, we have all minutes of board meetings, videos of board meetings, all board policies, emails between board members, all documentation. We pick a review team of volunteers and some staff who, in the case of DeKalb and in the case of Sumter and in the case of Warren, if the system is majority African American or majority minority, the review team is also made up of the same majority, because we want that connection. We want that relevancy between what the system experience. We pick people who have experience in being in that type of setting and are representative of the demographic. Those volunteers go in, review the evidence, and then those volunteers interview people that the system has identified to be interviewed. The system creates the schedule. The system picks those people who are going to come forward and be interviewed by us. That's not a secret. In all these court cases, the courts, the plaintiff or the defense attorneys could have brought in those people. They were identified by the system. They were in a written schedule by the system. There was nothing hidden. And the system knew exactly who the people were we sent in to do the interviews. See, it's a compact between the system and us. And so there was nothing hidden there. We wrote the report to the system. The system knows what is in that report. And their responsibility is to address, through the required actions, improvement. And for instance, in DeKalb, we give them a year's time. We don't recommend to the state removal of board members. We don't recommend to the state suspension of board members. We believe in a year's time, DeKalb, even if they had the same board today as they had in December, if they have the will and commitment to do so, they could make the necessary improvements. So I have concern that our process is being, in this case, which is in this case being misused for this purpose. I agree with the governor in that he wished in his address that the state would intercede in matters far more than just governance. I agree. I think the state should intercede, especially when systems aren't improving student learning. But the question is, who does on what basis and who intercedes? And that's the state's question, how they want to do that. But it should be for much more than governance. There are states that intercede with governance matters. Missouri and Alabama and Georgia share that. There are states who intercede with financial mismanagement. Alabama happens to be one of those. There are several others. But a lot of states intercede with student achievement issues. Georgia has not done that. They have not interceded. In the 11 years of NCLB in this state, they have never interceded with student achievement matters. I think part of the struggle is making sure you have clearly objective criteria upon which to take that action. So I think there is a very unfair and very inaccurate claim about our motivation on certainly racial makeup of school systems. Let me share some with you most recently. Wake County, North Carolina. One African American on a board of 9. NAACP filed a complaint with our office about changes that board wanted to make, and changes that were not in the best interest of the school system, changes that are not in the best interest of student achievement. Wake County has a rich history where they were graduating more African American males at a percent and increasing that than any other system in the state of North Carolina, and they were going to change their assignment policies and how these kids were going to be moved through the school system. We intervened. We intervened because we saw a direct impact that was starting to cause tremendous disruption for families in that county. It was not an African American board. They had one representative on that African American board. They had 8 Caucasians. Burke County, North Carolina, lost their accreditation, all Caucasian members. Cherokee County, Georgia, 1998, was put on probation by Sachs. One of the board members was recalled by the county. There were no African Americans on that board. Okay? What you may not know, in 2004, DeKalb County was placed on probation for governance by Sachs. Okay? Problem was there was no SB 84 in 2004. And in 2004, when we placed him on probation, by the way, the majority of that board was Caucasian, not African American in 2004. So I actually take umbrage to any racial motivation on our actions. I go to great care to make sure we are sensitive along those lines. And ultimately, our focus will remain where it should be. We want kids to win, kids to succeed. Kids no matter what shape, no matter what color, no matter what background. And I have, even as a teacher and a principal, I worked in poor communities by choice, because I believe every kid, not only do they have the will to learn, that if we believe they can learn, they will learn. It has nothing to do with the home they come from or the color of their skin. It has to do with adults believing and supporting them so they will learn. That's a philosophy that goes through my whole organization and will continue to go through it. I do believe SB 84 needs some adjustments. But I do believe we must hold all of us accountable as adults for taking actions that are in the best interest of kids, not ourselves as adults. And we must all commit to ensure that kids are successful in their educational experiences, no matter where they go to school.
Thank you, everyone, and I thank you for your opening statement. Are there any questions?
I think I asked one to the last, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I asked one to the last group, the Georgia Accrediting Commission. Dr. Elgard, can you tell us about payment of schools? Do schools pay you? Is it a small amount, or are you all competitive with others? Are you higher or lower?
Right. We're a regional accrediting agency, and based on the regionals, we are the lowest due structure in the country, charging $650 a year.
Per school?
Per school.
per school.
And we're the
Okay.
lowest in the country for regional accreditation, which cuts across state boundaries.
Okay, and I guess in Georgia, for the last 3 or 5 years, have you all received less than 20 million or more than 20 million for your services
That's for across the world, not for the state of Georgia.
just across the world?
Yeah, and you have to understand,
Okay.
when we go in and review teams,
Mhm.
the schools then reimburse the volunteers. We get no money when we go in and review teams. They reimburse the people who had to travel to do the review,
Mhm.
had to be in a hotel, they reimburse the hotel costs, and they reimburse their food costs. It is straight reimbursement of the team for their actual expenses.
Okay.
We derive no additional income from those reviews. The first review we do on a system, like we did on DeKalb, we actually pay for that. Any subsequent ones that DeKalb is required, they just reimburse those volunteers. There's no money that is expended on behalf of Advance Ed or SACS.
And then just one final thing. For Clayton County, the first time that you had a complaint and you went in, what was the racial makeup of that board?
Predominantly African American, I believe.
Was it-
Actually, no.
Was it all
No.
African American or
No,
predominantly?
actually, no, I have to take that back, because the initial one was actually in the early 2000s, when it was predominantly Caucasian. We actually went through, like DeKalb, there was a period of about 10 years of tremendous upheaval, in both directions. Clayton was one of those boards that went from majority Caucasian, majority African American, kept flipping back and forth. And we were involved when they were majority Caucasian, where they had concerns. Their first time they were put on probation, which was before SB 84 and any of this, they actually were majority Caucasian in early 2000. They were not.
It was not majority African American.
Not at that
When
time.
When 4 black women, 5
That was most
superintendents, that was your friend.
No,
There was
superintendent was
not?
my friend.
There was
Superintendent
not?
my friend.
Okay,
No, that was later. That I said, the process in Clayton started long before. They went through like 5 or 6 superintendents in a 10-year period.
okay, okay,
All right.
okay, I understand. Mr. Chairman, just one last one. You said you were so involved in the civil rights movement and you helped. How many school systems did you, I guess, did SACS help with this discrimination because they were so concerned about black children?
You can go many in Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and in Georgia. There were significant problems during that time. And in all cases, we held firm on our policy that you must follow state and federal law accordingly. And we will place you on probation if you do not.
Okay,
And they
very
were,
good.
and all the way up to the university level.
Thank you very much, Dr. Elgar.
I have a question.
Madam Representative.
Thank you, sir. You said SACS was established in 1895?
Mm-hmm.
So when did Advanced Ed come into play?
Advance Ed came into play in 2006 as a merger of 2 of the nation's largest regional accrediting agencies, North Central and SACS. We merged and we created Advance Ed because our accreditation work stayed the same, but we do other work other than accreditation now under Advance Ed.
Representative Scott.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being here this afternoon. You make a statement that the makeup of your review team, when you go out to the schools, be like the makeup of the schools that are out there. Have that just recently started, or is it something that you all have been doing all along?
Well, I can speak to I've been the head of SACS for 12 years, and during my tenure, I have expected that. That has been one of the criteria.
Okay, another question. How many African Americans do you have on your staff?
On my staff,
Well, yes, that go out. Well, it's the same. I guess I'm asking, when you go out to the school system, I'm just going to say in Clayton County, when you came out to Clayton County, I only remember that you had 2 African Americans. And you stated that the makeup of the people that you sent out for the review process is the same as the makeup of the school system that you're coming out to. So I'm just trying to figure out.
there were 6 people on the team, 4 were African Americans. My staff, I can't give you an exact number. I can tell you half my board are minorities. I can tell you that been very active in both promoting women in leadership roles and minorities in leadership roles within my organization, and will continue it. We adopted a board back in 2002 when I was hired. One of the commitments I made to them was to diversify my staff and my board and our volunteer base. And and I've been deeply committed to that for over 10 years.
Okay, another question. Okay, you said that the only thing, the recommendations that we see and that we hear in the news and in the papers offer like a governance. And you said that y'all main focus is on student achievement and education. So I guess I'm going back to the Atlanta situation when it was a direct impact and a direct reflection of student achievement. And we're talking about the removal of school boards and the recommendations made. But yet Atlanta still have their school board. So if Sachs was so set on student achievement, I'm just trying to figure out how to play with DeKalb County and the other counties coming to play with governance issues, and those board members are being removed, are being suspended. When Atlanta's situation with Sachs directly impacted student achievement. And it was nothing done with their school board. So I'm just trying to get an understanding and where we go from something that directly impacts student achievement to we have adults having vigorous debates or not, or as you all say, not getting along with one another. If y'all main focus is student achievement, and I know one opponent is government, but your biggest factor and your biggest thing that Sykes should be looking at and should be focused on is student achievement, and Atlanta directly impacted student achievement.
You're absolutely right, Ms. Scott. The problem in Atlanta is we do not accredit the elementary and middle schools. The cheating, we do not accredit the elementary and middle schools in Atlanta.
Right.
Okay? We had no authority to take any action. Now, Dougherty County, we've been closely working with them, and we have been reviewing them, monitoring everything that they've done, because we do accredit those schools. But in Atlanta, we do not accredit the elementary and middle schools. However, because the board came to us during this time of turmoil, and they were struggling, and they knew they were ready to have major problems in both staff and this cheating scandal. Both sides of that debate. Our role there was say, you need to get all on the same page. We don't care who your leadership is, we don't care who's on your board, but you have major, major problems ahead of you with the cheating scandal and staff issues because of the cheating scandal. And you need to provide strong leadership during this time. They used us in a productive way to get on the same page to deal with these problems. Even though we had no jurisdiction over the elementary and middle, the board knew that they had major challenges ahead. And to their credit, they not only hired the right person to help lead them through it, they put aside their differences to deal with, historically, the most expansive cheating scandal in the history of this nation. And I will credit this board for taking it on in a very tough way, but they had to get past some very significant problems with each other in order to start to focus on what they need to focus on. They've done a great job.
I'm sorry.
I'm used to you all
It's long
questioning
and
like
it's
that.
Representative,
That's okay. I'm used to
Representative
it.
Stevens,
Thank you,
and
Mr.
Representative
Chair.
Jordan, and Representative Key. It seems as if,
Thank you.
and Representative Powell.
Okay.
Okay, let's see if we can.
All right. I have several questions, but I'm going to break them up into some type of, I want to talk a little bit about what happens when you come out for a regular review versus a complaint investigation. I first want to make sure I understood. You named initially 5 different areas: vision and purpose, governance and leadership, teaching and learning, resources, support system, and continuous improvement in student achievement. And then you went on to describe the standards and student performance, correct?
Right.
Okay. When you think about governance and leadership, which of those components that the vision and purpose are not governance-related issues?
In the governance leadership? Okay.
Of the other, like, teaching and learning, is that a governance-related issue?
No.
Okay. So none of them are governance.
Well, I don't understand your question. What do you mean a governance-related issue? I'm not understanding.
Well, one of your, you said it wasn't the largest, but it was at least one of the components.
Right.
Okay. So of those other 4 components, do they overlap?
They're connected, they're all connected with each
There's
other.
a nexus between them.
Of course, it's one school or one school system. All of this works together.
So when we say that there is nothing in Georgia where you could be cited for, there really is, because those are governance-related issues.
But the state will only intercede if we identify specifically governance. If, for instance, we put DeKalb on probation for teaching and learning and resources, the state, by SB 84, would not have the ability to intercede. They only intercede if we have put them on for that standard for governance. And they were put on probation for two standards, governance and leadership, and resources and support systems. Those were the two standards.
And my understanding is that your last report was based on a complaint investigation. It wasn't a regular review.
They had a regular review in March of 2012, but the DeKalb progression, actually the system they started their own review with us. There was no complaint. They asked us to do a special review before the March, and we identified some issues there. Then we did the March review, and in the March review, a couple of the major areas which are still unaddressed have to do with teaching and learning.
I'm referring to your report issued in December.
That was facilitated by complaints that came from all over the system, from board members, from staff, from community members, from parents. Those complaints, so you understand, they may trigger a review, but they're not evidence of our findings. In other words, they just identify there's a potential problem because
They caused you to go into the school system.
well, we first communicate with the school system, and they give us a response back. In their response back to us, they didn't refute the concerns. And then we go forward and we said, well, we'll make an independent evaluation of whether or not there is issues related to meeting standards. And that review identified governance and leadership and resource support systems as concerns. They're not meeting those two standards.
Has your agency taken a position on the ideal size of a school board?
No.
When you said that in Senate Bill 84, that I believe you said you weren't in favor of the accreditation component.
As being a trigger for this, we didn't believe that it was necessary. We believe that the focus of SB 84 was to help improve governance, which we're all about improvement, not just of governance, but improvement of education. And we were very consistent there, and we're also a standards-based organization, and we advocated for standards, which we even helped support the development of those standards. We believe standards are good guideposts for people to do their jobs effectively.
Well, what part of SB 84 do you agree with?
The standards that the state has established and the increased training requirement, then especially whole board training, that must be conducted. We believe that whole board training is a very important part. We don't do the training in Georgia. We depend on those who are designed to do that training, and they're recognized by the state. But we believe that training available to board members can help improve governance in this state.
So you do not agree, though, with the forwarding on for a suspension of school boards?
Not after 30 days. Our process is designed to give people, like I said, you've got to set aside Clayton. That's an exception. 99% of our school systems, if they're placed on probation or warned and they have issues, they take care of them in a year and a half. The improvement is made. And so one of the things I argued was give them a chance first. If at the end of that period of time they can't, then it might be appropriate for the state to intervene. But they should be given the opportunity, 30 days, for instance, I got to separate all of this, but DeKalb finds out in December they're on probation for governance. In 30 days, they're before the state board. In each one of these hearings, we've advocated for a sort of a stay of that hearing for at least 6 months, maybe a year, because we've said in 30 days, there is no reasonable progress that can be made. They just learned from us what they have to take care of. Give them a chance.
So you did advocate for an extension?
Even
to
with
see
DeKalb, we've advocated for in all cases, at least a 6-month extension. In every case, we've advocated. I believe in the Sumter case, in every case the state and us have agreed. In Sumter, it was board members who wouldn't agree. But we really believe that at least 6 months, preferably a year, should be granted. Let the process work.
I'm almost finished, but difference with, you also addressed this issue of information exchange and the fact that you hold that the two parties that are privy to the information should be the school and SACS,
Mhm.
and that the school has it, so that you don't do these in contemplation of ending up in court.
We didn't design this process for, remember, we work in 71 countries. We did not design this process for court hearings. And if we were to, be honest with you, it would increase our costs to be able to do it. It'd be really hard to then rely on a volunteer base, because then we have to look at, taking affidavits, recording, transcribing interviews, doing all this. And quite frankly, our schools couldn't afford it. And that is, it's defeating the purpose here. The purpose here is to help them improve. The purpose here isn't to create a tight body of evidence for a court to review for their actions. It is designed as a collegial process focused on improvement.
Well, when SB 84 passed, did you adjust your findings or your relationship with the school so that you could contemplate ending up in court?
No, because like I said, we work in 71 countries. This is a national organization. We can't make allowances in one state that would not be fair to a school or school system in another state. We had a process that our schools and systems, we have our own policies that they support,